Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of This New Classroom. Today we're going to take a look at some of the different power tools, mainly the handheld portable type power tools that you're going to see commonly used on a construction site. Now this is not all of the power tools that you're going to see, but some of the more frequently used machines that you're going to see on the job site. Now with using any type of power tool, you want to make sure you have on a pair of safety glasses and take all the safety precautions, know and understand how to use each of those tools and all the safety stuff, and follow those safety rules that are associated with each of those tools. First and most important type of portable power tool you're going to have on any job site is the radio. I'm kidding, of course. That's my personal preference. I always have to have music going on the job site. Some places actually don't allow having a radio, so it's a matter of being aware of where you're working and knowing if you can or not. But me personally, on my job sites when it's possible, I like to have a radio going. Alright, the first thing we're going to take a look at is going to be some of the different types of drills and drivers. Now if you go and buy a drill, you got a ton of different options. You can go to any tool store and there is going to be 50 to 100 different types of drills to choose from. And now, do I buy a drill? Do I an impact driver? I got a lot of different options. First thing to look at is how frequently are you going to use that drill? If you're just going to use just real small drilling and it's not used a lot, you don't probably need to use a big heavy duty drill. Now if you're going to be using it all day every day and you're going to be drilling larger holes, you're probably going to want to buy a larger drill. This would be the Milwaukee 18 volt half-inch drill. And when it says half-inch, that's referring to the chuck size. So that's telling me how big the jaws of that chuck open up. So basically, there's like 3 little claws that pinch on that drill bit and hold it in place. This one being a half-inch, that's going to accept a drill bit that is a half-inch big. You can get a 3/8 drill, 1/4 inch, there's different sizes. So it's important to be aware of that. Loading the bit into the drill, all of these cordless drills today have a keyless chuck. So all you do is hold down the chuck portion, put the drill in forward, and that's going to cause those jaws to pinch. But you have to make sure that you're holding on to that little black part on the outside. Once you feel like it's tight, you want to take and crank it down and you'll kind of hear a little click. That's telling you that you're good to go. So using the drill, when you have the bit in place, you can either be going clockwise or counterclockwise. To adjust that, there's going to typically be a little knob right above the trigger. You can't see it in here, but there's an arrow pointing forward. Then on this side, it's pointing backwards. Okay, so whichever side that arrow is pointing to, that's telling you, hey, that's going forward or reverse, clockwise versus counterclockwise. So if I'm going to just be drilling, take and drill. Sometimes if you're doing a larger hole, it's a good idea to back that out every now and then to get some of those shavings out. Now it's important to make sure that you are going in forward instead of reverse. Right now I have this set in reverse, and this is a mistake I see a lot. Okay, I'm really pushing down and it's not getting anywhere because I'm going in reverse. So just by simply clicking that over, now I'm able to go in the right direction. So another option is going to be an impact driver. Now this is mainly going to be used if you're driving screws. So this looks very similar to a drill. Obviously it's a little bit smaller, but now when we look at the chuck, it's different. So this one takes a special type of screw tip and it just locks in place. There's going to be a little end that you pull out, and that's basically the quick release. So you pull that out, put your bit in place. Same thing, it still has forward and reverse. This one's going to be a little bit different because it impacts or hammers as you are driving the screw. They're really loud and obnoxious. Neighbors love it at like 8 in the morning when you're working on driving in, screws with an impact drive. So we take and start our screw. Sounds normal right away, but as soon as it starts to feel pressure, you're going to hear it get really loud. Now if you hear a sound like that when you're using a drill, that's not a good sound. That means that the tip of the driver is actually stripping out in that screw. Now the impact gun, that's a different story. That is actually a good sound. That's the driver itself impacting as it's driving. Alright, next we're going to take a look at the circular saw. This uses a 7 1/4 inch round blade, has a flat base, and it's hooked up to the motor. You would take and move this saw across your board to finish your cut. You can control the depth of cut by loosening lever over on this side and then raise and lower that whole base plate, and there's a little gauge on the back that's going to show you your depth of cut. So right now it's at 1 inch. You always want to be aware of where that blade is, because if I'm cutting through a board, it's not just cutting the board. Wherever that blade is at is going to be cutting. So you want to make sure your hands are not down below that, or you're cutting your board on a finished work tape. If you have it dropped all the way down, that's going to be able to cut through a 2x4. There's a lot of different feels and looks and sizes of the circular saws as well. Find something that is comfortable and feels good to, for you. So to make a cut, here we're just kind of going to do a freehand. You just squeeze the trigger, let that blade start, and you just cut all the way. Another innovation or improvement that they've made on just your standard circular saw is going to be a track saw. So when you look at the actual saw itself, it looks very similar to the circular saw that we just looked at. The only addition or improvement is it has this separate track. So if I were needing to cut a sheet of plywood to a certain size, I could just mark both ends of my plywood, lay that track down even with my marks, and where that edge of that track is going to be, that's where the edge of the blade is going to cut. So I don't have to worry about, running a chalk line and then using my circular saw, trying to freehand that cut and worry about that, not being an accurate straight cut. This, when it rides on the track, I have it all set up right, I'm going to have a perfectly straight cut. So one difference with this track saw versus the regular circular saw is that the saw itself actually plunges down. So I actually have to push down on that, basically make the saw plunge forward to be able to make that cut. Otherwise, right now, it's not, or the blade itself is not going into my board. So it's going to drop down. And there I've made a nice, perfectly straight cut. Now a lot of people say, hey, this is for like finished carpentry, cabinet makers. This can come in very handy on a framing site as well, just cutting down sheets of plywood or OSB that are going to be going on the house, on either your walls or the roof. Those are all the time having to be cut. This can save a lot of time having to, mark out boards, and it's going to give you a perfect straight cut every time. Alright, another type of saw that you might commonly use is going to be called a reciprocating saw. This is often referred to as a sawzall, and the reason for that is the Milwaukee Tool Company, who kind of first perfected the reciprocating saw, called it the sawzall. Basically, it looks a little bit different. See the blade at the end, and it's very easy to swap a blade out. Then you just pull the trigger and the blade reciprocates, moves back and forth. So that's just going real slow. There's up to full speed. So you're going to use this in a lot of different applications with, if I have to cut a piece of plywood in a window opening or just cut something out. Ton of different applications there. It's not going to be the prettiest cut all the time. It's more of a rough cutting, so you're not going to use this in finished carpentry, but when you're framing, having to just cut something off real quick and it doesn't have to be the prettiest cut, great tool to have, very handy, very versatile. Alright, so here we have a saber saw is the technical name for it. You're going to probably know it as a jigsaw. Kind of similar to the reciprocating saw in that the blade is going to kind of reciprocate, but now you hold it by the handle and you move your saw. What this allows me to do is do curved cutting, so I'm not limited to just doing a straight line cut. So think of like a jigsaw puzzle, a piece of the jigsaw puzzle. That's how this gets its name, doing those different curved cuts. Other than that, basically to use it, same concept as the circular saw, where hey, that blade is moving below the board where you're cutting. So you always want to be careful to make sure that whatever you're cutting is hanging over your table and you're not holding your hand underneath that. So always know where your hands are at all times. So there I was able to do that curved cut very easily by using the jigsaw. Okay, so another tool that you might use in framing that a lot of people maybe don't think about or associate with being a tool for framing is going to be a handheld planer. So if I'm, say, framing up a deck and my joists, lumber today is not perfect and they're very inconsistent. These are two different pieces of a 2x8 nailed together. If you can really zoom in, the outside one here is a little bit bigger than what we have on my left side, your right. But that deck frame, I want that to be perfectly flat. So rather than going through and trying to find all the boards that are exactly the same, if I have a little bit of inconsistency like I do in this example, well, all you got to do is basically lay that flat down on the board, breathe, and then just repeat that process until your surfaces are nice and flush. Another thing we're going to take a look at is driving nails. It doesn't matter if we're putting up a piece of trim, nailing up some framing lumber, putting 2x4s together for the overall framing. You're going to be using nails a lot in construction as well. So we have one method. Grab the hammer, pound the nail. Takes a little bit of time consuming. Speed things up, advancement in technology, is the nail gun. Drawback of this nail gun is I now need to have an air compressor and a hose and have that plugged into the wall. So I only have so much hose available, but the drawback outweighs having to swing a hammer all the time. So it saves a lot of trouble, a lot of headaches. Another advancement is they come out with a cordless nail gun. So again, it's very similar, uses a battery pack, just as fast as our air powered. But hey, now with the air powered, you hear the air compressor kicking on. Now we would have to sit and listen to that all day. We're now using the cordless, does not have the air hose that I have to deal with, and I'm not having to listen to that air compressor kicking on all the time. Drawback of the cordless is it's a little bit heavier, and once again you're limited to the battery life that you have available. So another type of cordless nail gun that they have today is going to actually use a little gas cartridge. So it's still cordless in the sense that you do not need an air compressor, but you have the little fuel cartridge, and it still does take a battery pack. So this kind of operates like an internal combustion engine, where there gets to be a little bit of gas buildup in the piston chamber, and there's a spark causing an explosion, but that's how that whole thing is going to function and operate. Alright, so when we're using a nail gun, it's important to look at what type of nailing that you're going to be doing and use the appropriate type nail gun. So this one that we saw earlier, this is going to be a brad nailer. This is going to use a small little nail, and those are available in different lengths, anywhere from 1/2 inch to 2 1/4 inch, and they could get even larger depending on your particular nail gun. So this is going to be for putting up like trim or something like that. This is going to be a framing nail gun, which is going to be using larger nails. So if I'm putting 2x4 framing together, I'm going to make sure I use that type of nail gun. If I'm putting down shingles, I'm going to use this coil roofing nailer. Notice they all look a little bit different. The types of nails that they use are different. So it is important to know the application and use the appropriate type nail gun. If I'm going to use this little brad nailer to try to put 2x4s together, it's not going to work out and it's not going to hold. And I'm not going to take and nail a piece of trim up using the framing nail gun. So again, pay attention to the job that you're doing and use the appropriate tool. Alright, so another safety thing you want to look at when you're using a cordless power tool is, say I have to change out a blade. First thing you should always do is remove the battery pack. Now if it's a corded saw, you want to unplug that. So basically we want to remove the power source, so if there's no way for that saw to turn on accidentally, say I were to accidentally pull the trigger while I'm touching that blade, that could end up very badly. So you always want to, first thing you do is remove the battery or unplug that from the wall. Alright, so that's just kind of a quick run through of a lot of the different frequently used handheld portable power tools that you might use frequently on the job site. Now you notice that most of the cordless tools, well, all the cordless tools that I showed you are Milwaukee. They're not a sponsor yet, but that's just the platform that I run. All the cordless tools I use are Milwaukee. I just like to have one battery platform, so I don't have to have different batteries, chargers to keep track of. Nice thing with all the tool manufacturers with their cordless tools, you can buy this as a bare tool. So if I already have a bunch of batteries, I can just go buy the bare tool, and they're all interchangeable. And this battery is going to work with that jigsaw, is going to work with the circular saw. So it's just a nice thing, but like I said, it's nice to keep on the same platform. Now if you don't really care, buy whatever tool is best suits your needs. And it's amazing the technology that has come about in the last 5 years looking at the different cordless tools. It used to be where a circular saw, a drill, and an impact driver was all you can get. Now any of the tool manufacturers probably have at least 150 different cordless tool options. Biggest thing, just like anything else, you do get what you pay for. You can go to any tool store and you can buy this drill for probably 200 bucks. Or you can buy a drill for $50. Both of those are going to include 2 batteries and a charger. The $50 drill, it's going to work, but it's not going to work nearly as long, and it's not going to be as strong and powerful as the $200 drill. One thing that I've always been told is buy your second tool first. So if you're looking at that, don't just look at the price tag. Look at the different features. Look at the motor speed, the warranty. Read reviews. Talk to different people who have used those, and get some good, honest feedback. Don't just buy what is the cheapest thing, because if that wears out, you're going to probably end up buying the more expensive one second, and now you've wasted some additional money. So do your homework, do a little bit of research, and buy the best tool that you can afford at the time. And if it's something that you're going to use all the time, absolutely spend the extra money. If it's maybe a one-off thing that you're not going to use real frequently, maybe it's a one-time use, yeah, you could probably get away with buying the cheaper version. But again, you want to have something that's going to be durable, that's going to last. Hope everyone has a great day. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.